What is a digital asset? What is monetary? Why use those terms versus the words of money and currency? Is there something interesting in that disambiguation of different terms?
I'd call it a crypto asset network. The goal is to create $1 billion block of pure energy in cyberspace. One that I could then move with no friction at the speed of light. Right? It's the equivalent to putting a million pounds in orbit. How do I actually launch something into orbit, right? How do I launch something into cyberspace such that it moves friction free? And the solution is a decentralized proof of work network, right? Satoshi's solution was, I'm going to establish a protocol running on a distributed set of computers that will maintain a constant supply of never more than 21 million Bitcoin subdividable by 100 million Satoshis, each transferable via transferring private keys. Now, the innovation is to create that in a ethical, durable fashion, right? The ethical innovation is, I want it to be property and not a security. A bushel of corn, an acre of land, a stack of lumber, and a bar of gold, and a Bitcoin are all property. And that means they're all commonly occurring elements in the world. You could call them commodities, but commodity is a little bit misleading, and I'll tell you why in a second. But they're all distinguished by the fact that no one entity or person or government controls them. If you have a barrel of oil and you're in Ukraine versus Russia versus Saudi Arabia versus the US, you have a barrel of oil, right? And it doesn't matter what the premier in Japan or the mayor of Miami Beach thinks about your barrel. They cannot wave their hand and make it not a barrel of oil or a cord of wood, right? And so property is just a naturally occurring element in the universe, right? And
Why use the word ethical? And sorry to, I may interrupt occasionally. Why ethical assigned to property?
Because if it's a security would be an example of a share of a stock or a crypto token controlled by a small team. And in the event that something is a security because some small group or some identifiable group can control its nature, character, supply, then it really only becomes ethical to promote it or sell it pursuant to fair disclosures. So I'll give you maybe a practical example. I'm the mayor of Chicago. I give a speech. My speech, I say, I think everybody in Chicago should own their own farm and have a chicken in the backyard and their own horse and an automobile. That's ethical. I give the same speech and I say, I think everybody in Chicago should buy Twitter stock, sell their house or sell their cash and buy Twitter stock. Is that ethical? Not really. Well, at that point, you've entered into a conflict of interest because what you're doing is you're promoting an asset which is substantially controlled by a small group of people, the board of directors or the CEO of the company. So how would you feel if the president of the United States said, I really think Americans should all buy Apple stock? You would, especially if you worked at Google but you worked anywhere, you'd be like, why isn't he saying buy mine? Right? A security is a proprietary asset in some way, shape, or form. And the whole nature of securities law, it starts from this ancient idea, thou shalt not lie, cheat, or steal. Okay? So if I'm going to sell you securities or I'm going to promote securities as a public figure or as an influencer or anybody else, right? If I create my own yo-yo coin or Mikey coin, and then there's 1 million of them, and I tell you that I think that it's a really good thing and Mikey coin will go up forever, right? And everybody buys Mikey coin, and then I give 10 million to you and don't tell the public, right? I've cheated them. Maybe if I have Mikey coin and I think there's only 2 million Mikey coin, and I swear to you there's only 2 million, and then I get married and I have 3 kids and my third kid is in the hospital and my kid's going to die, and I have this ethical reason to print 500,000 more Mikey coin or else people are going to die, and everybody tells me it's fine. I've still abused, the investor, right? It's a ethical challenge. If you look at ethics laws everywhere in the world, they all boil down to having a clause which says that if you're a public figure, you can't endorse a security. You can't endorse something that would cause you to have a conflict of interest. So if you're a mayor, a governor, a country, a public figure, an influencer, and you want to promote or promulgate or support something using any public influence or funds or resources you may have, it needs to be property. It can't be security. So it goes beyond that, right? I mean, like, would the Chinese want to support an American company, right? As soon as you look at what's in the best interest of the human race, the civilization, you realize that if you want an ethical path forward, it needs to be based on common property, which is fair. And the way you get to a common property is through an open, permissionless protocol. If it's not open, right, if it's proprietary and I know what the code says and you don't know what the code says, that makes it a security. If it's permissioned, if you're not allowed on my network, or if you can be censored or booted off my network, that also makes it a security.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about property, I mean, the challenge here is, how do I create something that's equivalent to a barrel of oil in cyberspace? And that means it has to be a non-sovereign bearer instrument, open, permissionless, not censorable, right? If I could do that, then I could deliver you 10,000 dematerialized barrels of oil, and you would take settlement of them, and you would know that you have possession of that property, irregardless of the opinion of any politician or any company or anybody else in the world. That's a really critical characteristic, and it actually is. It's probably one of the fundamental things that makes Bitcoin special. Bitcoin isn't just a crypto asset network. It's easy to create a crypto asset network. It's very hard to create an ethical crypto asset network, because you have to create one without any government or corporation or investor exercising undue influence to make it successful.